All right, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you. It's 9:30 Eastern, and this is opening time for financial 30, time for financial therapy. And this is an open hour or 30 minutes rather for your questions about financial therapy and its applications to your life and what's happening in your life. I'm going to start with a few questions that I would typically get about financial therapy. And the first one is, of course, well, what is financial therapy? That's a good question. And financial therapy is not just one thing. It's many things, but really its core essence is about creating a safe environment for people to explore their relationship with money. And that can look a lot of different ways, but we know that people have different relationships with money, and those relationships with money are composed of emotions, thoughts, behaviors, relationship dynamics that we have inherited from our family and our culture, and they all shape the way that we interact with money. So, financial therapy creates a space to start to explore and question and probe what's happening there. A great example of this yesterday in my office, um, I was talking with a client about how this line of everything will work out um, may be impacting the way that they face their finances. And this is something that shows up pretty often in my life as a financial therapist and working with clients. They will have this idea and they'll state it explicitly or kind of indirectly that everything's going to work out. It'll all be okay. And in some ways, that's a great thing to have that outlook, that optimism, right? It helps you persevere through difficult times. But the unintended consequence of that can be that you're not looking at how past decisions actually may be having a negative impact and leading to where you're at. And so, what we want to do is be able to take the time to step back and think about, well, why did this not work out? So, it's kind of flipping that question or that thought on its head from everything will work out to why did it not work out this last time? And so more pragmatically, right? Let's say that you overspent for the month, and you're realizing that and you just kind of have this. Well, it'll all work out, and then the next month happens, and you kind of say to yourself, "Well, it'll all work out," and then the next month, "Well, it'll all work out." And in one sense, that keeps you going down the road and optimistic about the future. But in another way, it starts to beg the bigger question: well, why is it not already working out? What maybe needs to change in order to get on budget? So, this one simple pattern of thought can really prolong how long it is before you recognize a deeper pattern around overspending. And so, this is really something that's so important to become aware of, right? So, that's one example of financial therapy and applying it in your life. Now, there's a lot of other scenarios where financial therapy may apply to your life. We'll just talk about thoughts. But let's talk about emotions. Emotions are, in my mind, a lot like a signal. They should be powerful information to let you know that something has happened for you. And we have those emotions that most of us feel pretty comfortable with: joy, excitement, pleasure, ease, happiness. Uh, we want to be able to experience those, and those can be signals that things are going well for us. The funny thing is, for quite a number of my clients, they actually have trouble experiencing joy, pleasure, excitement, happiness, which makes it really hard for them to then enjoy their financial life or be at peace with it. Those words are not associated with money. Those emotional words, those bonding and connecting words are not associated with money. And so it really starts to block their ability to enjoy their financial life. So, of course, then, well, what's on the other side of that is fear, anxiety, shame, anger, resentment. These are all different emotional states that lead us to have a visceral or body response to money, as well as a psychological response. When we're in those states of mind, it becomes very hard to approach a wide range of different financial topics both for ourselves and with our partner. So if we can stop and think about this for another moment, I'm talking about these things in isolation, thoughts, emotions, and then behaviors. But the deep reality is that they're all deeply intertwined with each other and impacting each other. But let's say that you have a particularly fearful kind of response about money. Maybe it sounds something like, oh, things will never work out. I can't get it to work out, even if I want it to. Um, it- right? Just kind of immediately even noticing that, what does that end up doing? Well, it blocks you from being able to face those events that you need to engage in. So, um, we want to face our fears. We want to get to the root of those fears around money. Where do they come from? And one of the things that I like to do when clients are stuck with difficult emotions around money is to start asking some questions like, can you remember when you first felt fearful around money? And I've had quite a number of clients, when given the space and the time to reflect on this, they can start to tell a story of um, their parents divorcing, their mom typically having to move out of the house, having to start working multiple jobs, and they're watching the face of their mother and the fear in her face. And that fear is being connected in your developing mind around money and its availability. And so, what we need to become more cognizant of is how have these experiences with difficult emotions like fear shaped our own internal expectations around our finances. I've had a client reflect on, they've become successful professionals, they're making good money, and then they end up in my office and they're looking at me in despair and distress because their life has fallen apart and they feel so confused. They paid off debt and then they fell back in debt and they don't really understand why. And as we start to pull the pieces apart, what I often end up discovering is that there's really some unresolved feelings around money and emotions from their childhood. And so in therapy language, we call this trauma repetition, and I would call it financial trauma repetition, where we're reenacting some of the same dramas that we saw in our childhood in our adult life. Now, this is not a conscious or intentional, volitional thing that people are doing, but in the way that our minds are wired, they hold all the memories of what happened in our childhood, and they serve as a deeper internal guidepost about how things should work out. And so, if we haven't taken the time to process, grieve, make sense of these past financial experiences from our childhood, then we're going to be left really stuck, making some unconscious bad financial decisions, right? So, financial therapy with this in mind becomes not just getting the right answers about how should I budget, how should I pay off my debt, but is diving into the deeper layers of how your mind and your brain are organized. And we're always going to be going through this process of learning, healing, and growing. That's the way I like to think about it. Is we always hit up against this wall of we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, and we're trying to make sense out of it. Why am I doing this with money? Why do I keep feeling this way about money? And so we've got to get some new insight. That's the learning piece. Understand our own motivations. Oftentimes, as we gain that new insight, though, it can evoke some deeper pain of some not being seen, not being understood in our own experience around what it was like. Let's just say watching your mom and dad's marriage fall apart, and the shock and the anger and the confusion and the frustration and the resentment and this big emotional storm that's happening also gets tied up or wrapped up around our financial life. And so by taking the time to explore into that, to start to grieve and let go of the past or integrate the past might be even a better way, we can come to start to see these connections. And that is its own sense of healing, right? Part of healing is making meaning out of our experiences, or especially our past experiences. And so what we want to do is be able to take that time to reorient ourselves around our relationship with money. Okay, so let's stop for a second. How are you feeling about all of this? Is it feeling overwhelming? Is it feeling like a lot? I imagine it could be. I knew it was for me initially when I first kind of learned about this whole area of financial therapy and really becoming a therapist. The idea of becoming introspective and looking inward to understand what was going on was very disorienting for me. And I imagine for some listening to this, that will be also the case for you. So take a moment, stop. Notice what it's even like to be watching this video right now, to be engaged in this Q&A. Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel foggy? Do you feel scared? Are you wanting to just turn it off? Those are all understandable signs, and they are pointing to the fact that this is a difficult topic. There's a lot that needs to be worked through. And so taking your time and recognizing that working on your relationship with money, while it might feel incredibly urgent to get to the bottom of what's going on and to create the solutions, the more effective thing to do is to stop, take some time, recognize that this is going to be a journey of exploration. It's going to unfold over days, weeks, months, and for some even years. I know it has for me. And part of what's so challenging about this is we have a lifetime relationship with money. So we can't just avoid it. It's much like oxygen and food. They are such a daily part of our life. They're needed for sustaining our life. And the same is true for money. And whether you're a stay-at-home mother, whether you're a busy corporate executive, whether you're working in a factory, whether you received a trust fund, it really doesn't matter where you're at in the financial world. You have a relationship with money. You're aware of how other people feel about your own position financially. And for some of us, that can create an incredible amount of shame and hiding. So financial therapy then starts to look at, well, how can we navigate being in this life, being in our particular financial role, and feel more financially secure, right? So we want to be able to enjoy our financial location in life, assuming it's where you want to be. Now, for some watching this, you may have aspirations of increasing your overall income, increasing your household wealth. For some, it might be, realizing I don't really like all this work and standard of living that I'm at, and you want to go down. And that's okay too. So what we're wanting to figure out is how to be as content as we possibly can with our current financial life, and then where we want to go in the future. All right, so what other questions might there be about financial therapy? Does financial therapy just provide answers? No. The short answer is no. It doesn't just provide answers. It's not going to say, okay, here's the exact formula to pay off your debt. Here's the right investment mix that you should have. Here's the best cryptocurrency you should be involved in. Here's the tax strategy that's going to save you the most money. Here's the estate plan that's going to best protect your assets. Here's the best way to save for college. Those are all important questions, but what we're looking at in financial therapy is the person behind the questions and what's stopping you from being able to go out and find those answers. And then if you have the answers, implement and move forward in those, executing those plans, finding the people that have the knowledge that can help you sort through that. Because the reality is each of those domains I just named your budgeting, your debt management, your investing, your taxes, insurance, estate planning. There's actually a decent bit of complexity and nuance to each of them, and they become interrelated with each other. And so ideally, people can start to work with a qualified, certified financial planner to organize the technical details of their financial plan. But if you're getting the information on how to manage your finances and what you should do to become more effective with your finances and create a plan that's coherent with your life, that's where taking the time to become introspective, learn about your relationship with money, learn about what reactions do you have to different financial conversations. Which topics are you most comfortable engaging in? Which ones do you want to divert away from? So let's just even come back to that very simply and take a moment. Um, do you feel comfortable looking at your budget and your personal finances? How much money is coming in and how much money is going out? Or does it give you the, oh my God response, or the, I can't stand to see that, or my partner takes care of it? Right? All of those are responses that signal, in my mind, some sense of anxiety, fear, shame, anger, uh, related to your cash flow or your budget, your income and outflow. And if that those are some of your reactions, then we need to ask about, well, what's going on there for you? How can we make it more comfortable for you to approach looking at your cash flow, your income versus your expenses? One thing that surprises a lot of my clients is they feel like, well, I just started making more money. I shouldn't have to worry about this so much. I just made even more money. I shouldn't have to worry about this. At a deeper level, they can say, well, high income people or people like this don't have to worry about money. And it's not so much that we have to worry about money, but we do have to be thoughtful and intentional about money, no matter where we're at on the income and wealth spectrum. The level of detail or the types of details that we pay attention to may change, but it's really this myth that if I just have a certain amount of income or wealth, I'll no longer have to worry about the finances. And so, if you're having that reaction to looking at your income expenses, let's start figuring out where is that coming from for you. Now, I hear all the time, and I'm going to apply this one for investments, is are you comfortable looking at your investments? Do you read your investment statements from time to time? Do you know how much money you're putting in month to month, year to year? Do you have a general sense for how your investments are growing over time? Even those fundamental pieces become really significant. I was having a conversation with a somebody I know in the community, and they said, "Ed, I have goals." And I said, "Well, good. I'm glad you have goals." And they said, "Well, what are your goals?" And she said, "Well, I want to finish community college." And I said, "Great. That's great. What are you studying?" "Well, early childhood education." "Okay, great." And I said, I'm getting closer to retirement." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I see that. I hear that, they're probably in their mid-50s." And I said, "Well, how much have you saved for retirement?" Well, I don't have anything saved for retirement." "Oh, okay." Well, I said, "How many people in your social world are saving for retirement or talking about that?" And she looked back at me and she said, "No one." "Oh, okay." So, well, here's what you need to do, right? Let's consider looking at opening an IRA and saving a little bit of money. "Well, I don't make that much money." Well, that's true, but that's one of those stories that we tell ourselves is I don't make that much money. And that may be true, but if we continue to hold that story in our head, that's one of those thoughts, right, that financial therapy works with is it will stop us from approaching an important topic like our investments and figuring out how to save. And often layered in here is some fear of math or I'm not good at math. And so that stops, right? So what we can become aware of is do we start to feel overwhelmed? Do we have the social support to try new financial activities? When I'm talking with some of my clients about this, one of the things that I like to do is um, ask them about their experience with math. And do they feel comfortable with math? And if not, then, you know, how can we work with that so that they can feel more comfortable with math, so that then they can feel more comfortable facing their investments and then making sense out of that. In a lot of ways, for many of us, as we start to face the financial world and engage in it, it can very much feel like a foreign country where we don't know the language. Yes, I mean, if we're an English speaking person, they are speaking English and we can recognize that. But the vocabulary, the number of words that we have and use to engage the financial world are quite a number. And if you haven't had anybody that talks money and uses all the different money words, you're going to feel lost and disoriented initially, especially around the finances. So, you know, using this story about Sally and not having started saving for investments is, but I'm wanting to normalize. It's okay. It's understandable. I'm not here to make you feel bad if you haven't started on that path of investing or exploring it. What I want you to know is that there's a deeper psychological and really sociological reality that helps explain why you haven't engaged in your finances or expanded into that next area like investments. And so, no, it's there's not something wrong with you. You're not a bad person. You're not idiot. You're not stupid. All these, those are negative narratives. Those are negative self statements that also are stopping you from making the progress that you need to make on your personal finances. So this is where we can practice some of our own financial empathy and self compassion and say, I haven't had the chance to learn about this. I need help learning about this. I feel scared trusting other people to help me with this. That certainly is something I see quite often is just even being able to trust other people with their finances. Yeah, I can remember not another client that I've worked with where I said, well, tell me a little bit about why you don't feel comfortable working with financial professionals. And they said, yeah, okay, sure. Well, when my mom died, uh, my uncle managed all the money. That was his job in life. And so he just took over and he told me what to do. And he didn't ask me any questions. And I didn't really like it. And it didn't make me feel good. Oh, okay. So you had this family member who didn't really listen to you or feel like understood what you needed with your finances. And they said, yeah. I said, hmm. Are you concerned that that might happen again with another personal finance professional? Yeah, I am. Okay. So right now we have a very different scenario on our hands where this client now recognized that they were avoiding working with a qualified personal finance professional because of this one bad experience. And granted, it was during a difficult time in her life. And so it made it hard for her. And she was already feeling insecure about finances. And her partner had been more active in managing finances all along. So there was all these layers to what was going on for this client. But one piece was being able to work on that relationship and recognize that now, as a grown up and as an adult, that maybe she can find a new relationship with someone who has more compassion, more curiosity, ability to ask about questions and goals instead of just being very authoritarian, right? When we get told what to do, especially even when we're young adults, it makes us feel very uncomfortable. And so part of the gift of financial therapy and doing this is being able to recognize that, yeah,